Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Bill. Yeah, put it right down there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Okay. It could be right.
Grab my water. I heard that conversation.
14th Circuit Court for the County of Muskegon, State of Michigan is now in session. Judge William C. Marietta presiding. Please be seated.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a pleasant weekend. We're ready to get to work. Mr. Hilson tells me he's got about a half dozen witnesses he wants to call today. So
correct.
Let's get started.
Yes, sir. The people of the state of Michigan call Sergeant Jim McDonald to the stand.
I can have like 20 minutes here, DJ.
Yeah.
Once he gets going.
Yeah.
I'll have plenty of time to go do some stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Please raise your right hand. You swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please have a seat. State your name for the record.
James MacDonald, M-A-C-D-O-N-A-L-D.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Could you tell the jury what department you work for, please?
I am with the Michigan Department of State Police. I have been for 28 years. I'm assigned to the Technical Services Unit.
And as part of your role in the Technical Services Unit, did you participate in a number of these investigations involving, for example, the disappearance of Jessica Herringa, the death of Rebecca Bletch, and the abduction of Madison Nygaard?
I did, sir.
Now, as part of that, your technical services, does that require a certain level of training and experience?
Yes, sir. The Technical Services Unit is a support group. We provide support to investigators across the state in matters that are electronic or technical in nature for their investigations.
And you've indicated that you've been with the state police for over 20-some years. Have you been assigned to this unit for that long a time?
Been assigned to Technical Services for 22 years.
Okay. And I would imagine, sir, in those 22 years, you've done a lot of analysis as it relates to cell phone records, for example.
Correct.
And I would assume also in those 22 years you've also worked in not only helping to collect video, but analyzing that video as well.
Yes, sir.
And also, I'm assuming in that 22 plus years, you've been qualified as an expert in courts across the state.
Yes, sir.
And you've testified before as an expert.
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
Fred, do you require me to go any further in his qualifications? Or?
I do not.
Okay.
Stipulate
Your Honor, I'd move that based on that stipulation that we qualify Sergeant McDonald as an expert in the area of both cell phone data analysis as well as video evidence.
The witness will be certified as an expert in that area to be examined.
Okay. Before we get into the cell phone aspect of your testimony, I want to go over what you did in the Jessica Herringa matter as it relates to store video. I'm assuming your services were asked shortly after, or asked for, I guess, shortly after the disappearance of Jessica on April 26, 2013?
Yes, sir.
And as part of that, had investigators located some locations, in particular along Old Grand Haven Road, that may contain video evidence, if you will, that they were interested in?
Yes, sir.
And your role, what was your role? Talk generally first, and I'll get into specific, but generally, what were you asked to do for them?
The detectives would go and canvass businesses and areas of really all across that area, looking for video cameras or cameras that were mounted in businesses, and then they were looking at the video to see if there was anything on there. If they found something that they thought was important, they would contact me to come and extract the video.
Okay. And did you do so? Did you extract video at least 3 different locations along Old Grand Haven Road?
Yes, sir.
All right. Give me 1 second here, Sergeant. Sergeant, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 189, 190, and 191. Those packets contain 3 different videos, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
From what locations?
One was from May Consulting. Second was from the Homestead, Old Homestead, and the third was from Boyer Coin.
And were those the 3 locations that you actually extracted video from?
Those were 3 of many that I did, yes.
Sure. But I guess good answer to kind of a bad question. When we're talking along Old Grand Haven Road, were those the 3 locations that you were able to extract video from?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, I move for the admission of 189, 190, and 191.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Thanks.
Thank you, Sergeant. I have no objections, Your Honor.
All right, go. 189, 90, and 91 will be received.
All right, let's talk about, let's first talk about May Consulting, which we're calling a mattress store. Is that what it was?
I believe it was a home, like a decor, kind of where they'd come in and help decorate your house and stuff, but they had a back room that did have mattresses. I think that's how we got, kept calling it the mattress store.
Okay. And the location of this particular store was where?
The store was located in the West Point Mall. It was on the west side of the mall there, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was the second or third unit in from the southernmost business, which was Firehouse Guitars.
Okay. And this, just so we're clear, because I think I've been calling it something different, but this is the same mall that is, I guess, west of the Exxon station.
Correct.
Now, prior to your going in and extracting video from all these locations, but since we're talking about May Consulting, were you given sort of a time frame investigators were interested in trying to see if they could capture any images?
Yes, sir. For the most part, we were initially looking, before 11 o'clock and up to like 11:30, 10:30, 11:30. We were trying to just see if there was video that was pertinent, and we kind of had a narrower time frame. So I think with May Consulting, I initially went in and was looking earlier to see if there was video from the parking lot.
Okay. Now, and were you aware of the fact that investigators were interested as to whether or not any video captured a silver van?
Yes, sir. Well, from the description that Detective Casher gave me, that was a vehicle of interest, so we obviously were looking to see if a van of that description was on video.
Okay. Now, this portion of Old Grand Haven Road, would be north of the intersection of Sternberg and Old Grand Haven?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and how much, how much video from May Consulting did you collect?
I captured approximately an hour of
Okay.
a video from May Consulting.
And again, that time frame, did that include times before and after 11 p.m. on April 26, 2013?
Yes, sir.
Now, you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure you've come across many different video systems. Some good, some not so good, I would assume.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in particular, I want to talk about the time clocks on video systems. In this particular case, were you able to determine whether or not the video time clock on the May Consulting video, was it accurate, not necessarily to the minute, but at least had the close enough proximity to hour and minute?
I did. So if I can explain.
Yes, please.
So when you're doing an extraction, the first thing that you try to do is determine if the equipment, the digital recorder, this time is accurate. Because so many people are buying and deploying their own equipment, sometimes they don't understand how the menu works, and sometimes they don't set the clock, or if there's a daylight savings time change, the clock will be at the right time at part of the year and then the wrong time part of the year. So one of the first things I do is I compare my cell phone clock to what the clock is on the DVR. In this case, they were approximately an hour off. My clock was, for example, would have been at 10 o'clock. The DVR clock was at 9 o'clock.
Okay. And so I'm assuming you factored that in when you collected that hour's worth of video in order to capture the right time frame.
Correct.
Now, in that captured video, in that window of time, I guess, did you observe anything that might be of interest for investigators?
Yes, sir.
What did you see?
Approximately, and according to the DVR clock, which was an hour off, at 22:0014, a vehicle matching a description of a gray van was proceeding northbound on Old Grand Haven Road.
So I'm going to show you, or I'm showing you, I guess, what's marked as People's Exhibit 66. See that on your screen there?
Yes, sir.
Is this a captured image of that video that you observed?
Yes, sir.
Now, you indicated that the time clock of this image was 2200, essentially in some seconds.
Correct.
But that was an hour off.
Correct.
So it really was 2300.
Correct.
Okay. Now, did you also then go and take a look and collect any video from the Old Homestead Bar?
I did, sir.
Now, Old Homestead is it north or south of this video outlet?
North.
Okay. Not video outlet, I'm sorry.
May Consulting.
Thank you, May Consulting. So it's north of May Consulting.
Correct.
And were you able, and did you collect any video from the Old Homestead Bar?
I did.
Now, can you describe for the jury, again, how much of that footage you collected?
I don't recall which detective was with me, but there was at the detective's direction, we ended up offloading about an hour's worth of video from Old Homestead also.
And again, did that include the time periods of interests, time
Yes.
before 11 and after 11?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, again, given your experience with the video time clocks, what Given your experience with the video time clocks, what was the situation with the video time clock at Old Homestead?
Their DVR clock and the real time were off by 16 minutes. So the real time, it was, for example, if it was 10 o'clock, they were actually 16 minutes slower, so it would have been 9:44. So.
All right, and again, using that adjusted method, were you able to again capture the relevant time frames? In other words, before 11 p.m. and after 11 p.m. on
Yes,
the 26th?
sir.
All right. Now, in your observation of that video, did you find anything of interest for investigators?
Yes, sir.
What'd you see?
I'm one of the camera views. It captured just a little portion of Old Grand Haven Road, and you can see a vehicle that matches the description of the vehicle, a gray van driving northbound on Old Grand Haven Road.
All right. Showing you, sir, what's marked as People's Exhibit 67. These two still shots, is that capturing the image that you just testified about?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, the other important question I have for you, given your discovery from May Consulting and your discovery here at Old Homestead, the observation of the van at the Old Homestead, is that occurring before the van appears at May Consulting or after, from a time standpoint?
Even factoring in the times, May Consulting is the first sequence of seeing this particular vehicle. So it was May Consulting and then Old Homestead.
Okay. Now, Boyer Coin, did you collect video from that particular business?
Yes, sir.
And again, is this a business that's located on Old Grand Haven Road?
Yes, sir. Further north of the Old Homestead.
All right, so further north of Old Homestead. Again, I ask you the same question as it relates to the video time clock at Boyer Coin. How did it work in relation to your cell phone?
The Boyer Coin's DVR was 20 minutes, or actually 21 minutes off to the plus. So if it was 2 o'clock real time, it was 2:21 on the DVR.
So the DVR was 21 minutes fast, essentially.
Correct.
Okay. Now, again, did you collect, I guess, how much of that Boyer Coin video did you collect?
Same parameters. We were using approximately an hour's worth of video.
And again, that hour's worth, did that include times before 11 o'clock and times after 11 p.m. on April 26, 2013?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you make any discoveries on that particular video?
Yes, sir. There was a vehicle that was the same description of the van that was of interest, caught by one of their exterior cameras that caught part of Old Grand Haven Road.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 68. Two still images. Are those two still images consistent with what you just testified to?
Yes, sir.
And again, you kind of answered the question, but this is an exterior camera at Boyer Coin, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that is Old Grand Haven Road that it's capturing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, I'll ask you the same question as I asked before. In relation to May Consulting and Old Homestead, is this image happening before or after those two locations?
This image would be occurring after it appeared at the Old Homestead.
Okay. And I'll ask it, but it seems from a common sense standpoint, is this image then appearing after the image at at May Consulting?
Yes, sir.
All right. Overall, in a time sequence, as we look at these three videos, what conclusions did you draw?
This particular van that the detectives were interested in obviously was driving northbound on Old Grand Haven Road as it was caught by May Consulting camera, approximately 11, by the Old Homestead after that, and then by Boyer Coin after that.
Okay. And so, is it safe to say that all these images are happening after the 11 o'clock hour?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's talk now on phone. Here, and I'm going to work to you, sir. Make sure everybody can see that, and I'm going to give you this. First and foremost, as it relates to this particular case, in order for you to do your work, do you require, you require some records, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What records of interest are you looking for in order that you can do your work?
We're looking for the carrier records pertaining to the phone and the phone number that's assigned.
Okay. And could you describe or explain to the jury, what about, how you use those records, and then we'll get into some of the technical stuff, but what's important about those records to you?
And I apologize if I get so used to saying things that sometimes you forget that when I say a carrier, that would be like your AT&T, your T-Mobile, your Sprint. They also sometimes, I might refer to it as a provider, so I apologize if I try not to be confusing. The records are what we're looking for from a particular phone number, give us a lot of information as investigators. Obviously, we get dates and times of calls. We get tower locations that the call was being made from, and the sector. We get duration. We get calling party, who was either calling incoming or outgoing, who was calling whom. So there's a lot of valuable information for the investigator on those phone records.
Now, on top of that, do you receive information called cell site data?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe for the jury what that is, please?
The cell site data, depending on which provider or which carrier it is a list of all their cell phone towers in a particular area. So if we ask for a Detroit market or a Chicago market, they send us a list of all the towers that are in that market.
And for your purposes, for investigative purposes, why is that data important?
The data is important because the towers will show the area that the phone is using or utilized, what tower, what sector. It's kind of shows a little bit of a pattern. If there's a pattern, it'll show a multitude of things with the phones, if they're texting, if they're calling. And the towers have a lot of information that are very valuable to people that are doing analytics on them.
Does that data help in location? In other words, determining where a cell phone is or where it's being used?
Yes, records that are generated on the tower will generate, obviously the towers all have individual identifiers, but then there will also be broken into sectors. So you can take a record and determine from which side of the tower that the record was made.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, in general, then, and that's kind of why I drew brought the whiteboard over for you to kind of explain to the jury how a tower is made up and what you're looking at and how that information is valuable. So,
Okay.
You may, please.
For this particular carrier, this is a AT&T for these set of records. And what they do is when they send me the records, or they send the detective and he forwards them to me, included, embedded in the records are GPS coordinates. The GPS coordinates are the location of where that tower is at. So we physically know we have a spot where the tower is located at. So if this is the center of the tower, so if you can imagine you're a bird flying overhead and you're looking down on the tower. And then this tower, what they'll do is they'll break it up into sectors. And these are for demonstration purposes. I'm not saying that this is how all the towers are set up. This is just a demonstration. So this tower might be split into sectors like this. So if you imagine the center of the tower here, there's a sector, and a sector.
And what's the importance of those sectors? I mean, why is that important?
Well, your phone, when you turn your phone on, your phone sends out a signal to the tower, and it's trying to give the tower, the phone company is trying to give you the best service possible. So what they'll do, because there's a tower here, and say you're right here someplace, but say there's another tower here that's got the same configuration, and this sector might give you better service. So if your phone here, it might want to affiliate there or affiliate to that tower. It really depends on a lot of different things that with the phone, the environmental, the topographical, if there's some kind of interference with your phone, but it's going to look to give you the best signal. It wants to make sure you have service.
Along those lines, as you talk about environmental, are there certain things that can disrupt the signal?
Yes, absolutely. A phone, for all intents and purposes, is a radio. It's sending signals and receiving signals. There's nothing magic about that. And I'm sure we've all had the experience where you're in your car and your radio station just doesn't seem to get a really good, doesn't lock into the station. And you move 5 feet forward and all of a sudden it clears right up. Radio frequencies are the same way, especially when we're talking, that was very simplistic, but when we're talking with cell phones, it's trying to do a multitude of different tasks and looking for the best signal at all times to try to give you that not only a phone call, but your text, data, whatever you're trying to do, it's always trying to give you service.
Now, when you obtain raw records and you look at it, will those records tell you, like for example, if a call is received, where that call is bouncing off of? In other words, what tower your phone is using in order to get that best possible signal?
Yes, if the detectives get a search warrant for phone records that include cell tower information, every single record that is generated is going to generate with tower information. It's going to tell you what tower and sector that the call was, or the text, or the data transaction was done on.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 192. What is that, sir? I should ask the question, are those the raw AT&T records as it relates to the defendant's cell phone?
Without opening them, yes, sir, I would assume they are.
And are those the records you used for your analysis on the defendant's cell phone?
Yes, sir.
What number is that?
That is 192.
Okay, thank you.
Also, and I'm assuming, Mr. Johnson, the stipulation that the defendant's cell phone at the time, his number was 231-855-4471.
So stipulated.
And their home number was 231-777-0070.
So stipulated.
Okay. All right, let's talk about your work here, Detective. Thank you, sir. I'm going to hand you what's been marked here as People's Exhibit 193. What are we looking at here?
This is a transaction off phone records that I plotted using a program that will give me basically a visual aid to show you where the call was placed, where the transaction took place.
And this particular phone call was the early morning hours of 12:30 a.m. on April 26, 2013. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We had some testimony in this case that from the HR person from Herman Miller that the defendant took, which would have been his Thursday night into Friday morning off. Does this record indicate a phone call being either received or placed from his cell phone?
Yes, sir. This is an outgoing call at 12:30 a.m. on the 26th, and it's the cell phone calling the home number.
Okay, so this is a call from the defendant's cell phone to the residence.
Yes, sir.
And on the map here, you've got two blue points. What do those represent?
Those were areas of interest that the detectives had noted to me. One was 3038 Bailey, and the other one was 1842 South Sheridan.
Now, on this map, you've got that kind of, I'll call red pie shape. What is that representing?
That's representing the sector that from the tower that transaction was generated.
So the point of it's not really it's not a triangle, a quote-unquote triangle, but I'm going to call it that for argument's sake. But the point where the two lines come together, is that similar to the center point of the tower itself?
Yes, sir. That would be one sector off of that tower. So that if you want to call the pizza pie, the point of the pizza, that's where the tower would be located.
All right. And your diagram is showing that signal is bouncing off of that tower?
The transaction occurred in that sector where the red's at.
Okay. And that encompasses the house at 3038 Bailey?
Correct.
Okay. And again, just so that I make sure that I get this correct, it's the defendant's cell phone calling his home?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Now, let's talk about some of the other work that you did along on that particular day. 1 second here. All right. This is People's Exhibits 100. Excuse me, 100. And this is occurring, I guess, can you describe for the jury what we're looking at here?
Yes, sir. This is an incoming call to the cell phone from the home number, and it's occurring at 11:23 p.m. on the 26th.
Okay. Now, you've got started and ended. Can you explain that for the jury, please?
Yes, sir. The transaction started in that sector that's highlighted with yellow, and then it ends in the sector that's not highlighted.
Now, when you have something like that, what does that mean? Or what I guess, what is one of the possible explanations?
There's a multitude of possible explanations in the sense that it could be if you were moving, like if you're driving down 31, for example, and you were driving, you could hit off multiple towers if you were on a phone call driving. If you're stationary, it could be something changed either environmentally, maybe you were behind something, a brick wall or something, and you moved and your phone grabbed another tower because the signal was blocked and it wanted to make sure you had continual service. So there's a lot of other things, like if the weather had changed, but for the most part, usually movement or something blocking the signal, making it switch.
And I go back to part of your earlier testimony. The goal of any cell phone carrier is to give you the best cell signal possible. Is that
correct?
Correct. And I'm assuming that's why phones are even designed today to try to get to wherever the strongest signal is.
Correct.
Now, both of these sectors, where it started and where it ended, does that incorporated what address?
That would incorporate the 3038 Bailey house.
So if I understand correctly, there is a phone call coming from the defendant's home, the landline, to his cell phone at 11:23 p.m. on April 26, 2013.
Correct.
All right. Let's move on to, this is going to be People's Exhibit 101. What are we looking at in this particular exhibit?
On 4/26/11:59, there's an additional incoming call from the residents to the cell phone.
Okay. So this is an incoming phone call from the landline, defendant's landline, to his cell phone.
Yes, sir.
And again, the sector that it's bouncing off of, what address does that incorporate?
That 3038 Bailey.
And this is, I think, well, the exhibit kind of shows, but this is 11:59 p.m. on the 26th.
Correct.
All right. People's Exhibit 102. what are we looking at in this exhibit?
At 102, it actually would be 427 at 12, right at midnight. It shows an incoming text to the cell phone. And if I could just expound upon that.
I was going to ask you if you could explain that, please.
Because of the type of phone that this number was assigned to at the time, it wasn't a smartphone, it was a flip phone, a clam, some people they call them. It wasn't as sophisticated as the smartphones that we probably all have now. So if you had missed a call and the person had left a voicemail message, or you just missed a call, because of the way this phone was set up, what it would do is the network would actually send a message to your phone and let you know that you've missed a call or you have a voicemail. So my system coded that as a text message. It's not a text message. It's a short code for letting that phone know that it missed either a call or has a voicemail message.
Okay. So this is the second phone call from the defendant's landline to his cell phone on the 27th. Well, actually the third call if you count the
Well,
third morning.
this is a message from the network, from the provider to the phone, letting him know one of two things: either he missed a call or he's got a voicemail message.
Gotcha. And again, the sector incorporates what address?
It incorporates 3038 Bailey.
All right. Okay. People's Exhibit 103. What are we looking at in that particular exhibit?
Excuse me. At 427-1205, there is an outgoing call, meaning the cell phone is calling out and it's calling the residence.
So outgoing from the defendant's cell phone to the defendant's landline.
Correct.
And that the sector, if my memory serves me right, this sector is a little bit different than it has been in the other exhibits.
There was one previous slide, sir, I think, where we had where the call started and ended in a different sector.
Okay.
This is the same sector that other call ended in. The tower in that sector is pointed straight west.
Okay, and I guess that's kind of what I was trying to get to. This particular sector is capturing everything from the point west to the lake, essentially.
Probably not that far, but yes.
In that direction, I guess.
Yes, sir.
All right, gotcha. And again, this sector incorporates what address?
This would still incorporate the 3038 Bailey.
All right. Give me 1 second here, Sergeant. In your records, the next activity, from 12:05 a.m., were you able to determine what, if any, additional activity between that and the next phone call?
The next activity transaction occurred at 4:27 at 3:47 p.m. So later that same day.
All right, so from 12:05 a.m., was there any activity on the defendant's cell phone from 12:05 until that next call at 3:47?
No, sir.
None whatsoever.
None.
All right, what are the, various examples or reasons why that might occur?
Obvious one is if your phone is off. Another one would be you just absolutely have no activity whatsoever. Those are probably your two best explanations.
So nobody's calling you, you're not calling anybody, is one explanation. Or you shut your phone off.
Correct.
Because I'm assuming, well, let me not assume, but let me ask you the question. If you turn your phone off, is it emitting any signal to let towers know where you're at?
No, sir.
You're essentially have turned your GPS off, so to speak.
Correct.
Okay. Give me 1 second. know we've already admitted. Judge, I would move for the admission of People's 192, which are the raw AT&T records of the defendant's cell phone.
No objection.
Did we admit 189?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I thought so.
Yes, sir.
192 was received.
All right. Also, I would move to admit People's Exhibit 193, which is the 4:26 of 13 to 12:30 a.m. Mapping.
No objection.
Received.
And then exhibits 100 through 103.
No objection, Your Honor.
Received.
All right. I have no further questions of this witness. Thank you.
Good morning, Sergeant McDowell. Let's start that one.
Good morning, sir.
Is this, you mentioned that if your phone's turned off, the GPS is turned off and it isn't emitting any signals, correct?
Well, your radio, the frequency, the radio frequency is turned off.
Okay.
Some phones have GPS. All of them now do, but that's function of the phone on or off.
Okay. But I guess, do you know of any carriers who make it their policy to inform people that if you turn off your phone, the phone can't be traced or anything along those lines, or the phone can't be followed, or it isn't sending signals if it's off? Do you know any carrier that sends out notifications to people saying, hey, this is the way your phone works? In other words, this is not common knowledge, is it? People don't, I mean, based on your experience, do people, and when you talk about what you do at the cocktail parties, do people know that if they just turn their phone off, that the phone can't be traced, or we don't know where it is?
I think most people.
You think most people know that?
Yeah.
Most people know if they turn off their phone that they can't be traced.
Yes.
Okay.
I have no further questions. Thank you. You may stand down.
Thank you, sir.
All right. People of the state of Michigan call Detective Sergeant Zach Sparks to the stand.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter before this court will be the truth, so help you.
Yes, I do.
Please be seated, state and spell your first and last name, please.
Zachary Sparks, ZACHARY, SPARKS.
Good afternoon. Wow. Good morning, Detective Sparks. How are you?
Good.
You work for what department, sir?
Michigan State Police.
And were you assigned by the state police, or were you, I guess, asked to assist in some of this investigation?
Yes, I was.
Now, I want to initially talk to you about your first assist in the, I guess, the traffic stop and arrest of the defendant. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And now we've had some testimony from Deputy Foster that he was the marked unit, in other words, the cruiser, if you will, to initiate the traffic stop. Do you recall that?
Yes.
What was your role?
My role that day was myself and Detective Levine from the Muskegon County Sheriff's Department. Our role was to make contact with Jeffrey Willis that day and bring him into the Sheriff's Department for an interview.
And in fact, after Deputy Foster initiated the traffic stop, did you make contact with the driver of the vehicle?
Yes.
And I want to show you, sir, it'll be on the screen in front of you, People's Exhibit number 1. Do you recall that vehicle?
Yes, I do.
Is that the vehicle that was pulled over?
I believe so. It looks like the vehicle. I'd have to see the plate, the registration
Okay,
plate.
hold
but
on.
I believe it is.
Okay. can show you that. It'll be People's Exhibit. People's Exhibit 77.
Yes, sir, I do recognize that.
All right, that's the vehicle that was pulled over?
Yes.
All right. And did you make contact with the driver of that vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And was there anybody else besides the driver in that vehicle?
No.
And who ultimately did you identify as the driver of the vehicle?
Jeffrey Willis.
And is he in court today?
Yes, he is.
Could you point him out, describe what he's wearing?
He is on my right-hand side of the defense table with a dark sport coat, red tie.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. Thank you. Look the same or different that he did that day that you...
Different.
And how so?
He's thinner.
Thinner now or thinner then?
Thinner now. He's lost weight since then.
All right. Now, now you didn't take part in interviewing the defendant at that point in time, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Excuse me. I also want to talk to you about your role in this investigation as it relates to a house at 3038 Bailey. I recall being part of that.
Yes, I do.
And why were investigators interested in the Bailey house?
I had been given information that day from other investigators that they had made contact with family of Jeffrey Willis, who had advised that he had control of a vacant home that was later determined to be 3038 Bailey.
And was there, was there some sort of familiar relationship to that residence? In other words, was it in his family?
Yes.
Who?
The home had previously been owned by Lawrence Willis, who was the grandfather of Jeffrey Willis.
Now, as part of that, let me pull up. All right, starting with Exhibit 104. What are we looking at in that photograph, please?
This is a photograph of the address 3038 Bailey.
What number is that?
3038 Bailey.
104, Judge.
Okay.
I would have taken that photograph.
You took this photograph?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Exhibit 105. What are we looking at here, sir?
This is a trash can that was located in the detached garage of 3038 Bailey.
And what, I guess, why are we looking at a picture of a trash can?
Because when I was at the scene beginning the search warrant of 3038 Bailey, I was advised by another investigator that there was a gum wrapper, a green gum wrapper that looked out of place in this trash can.
All right. What, if anything else, did you discover?
After observing the gum wrapper, I became more in tune to what appeared to be a piece of paper below that was also oddly out of place for the condition of the garbage.
All right. Showing you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 106. What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the unfolded piece of paper that was located directly beneath the gum wrapper that was located in the garbage can.
And in fact, sir, did you end up collecting that as evidence?
Yes, I did.
Handing what's been marked as People's Exhibit 194. What's in that envelope?
This envelope is an evidence envelope that has my handwriting on it. I would have prepared this when I seized the note, which is listed as Part 1, a white paper note with black and red ink. And then also the green Trident extra care gum package is also included in this packaging.
Would you mind pulling the note out, please? All right, I'm gonna line this up here on the exhibit for the jury's purposes. Okay, what can you describe it for us, please, Detective?
This paper note is crumpled and wrinkled, approximately 5 by 8 inches. It includes a list of various items written in black red ink. There's an area on here where there's some pencil marks, pencil text also written on it.
And it appears as though the note's broken down into 3 separate sections.
Yes, sir.
And the first section is labeled what?
Clothes.
Okay. And there's, I guess, various articles of clothing. Is that accurate?
Yes, there is.
In particular, the asterisk by underwear, what does that say?
The third line.
Third line down, yes, sir.
Do you mind?
Yes.
The third line down right here is there's an asterisk mark. It says underwear. This appears to be an and symbol. Her panties.
Okay. And the second, I'm curious too as to what the second to last line in that section and the last line say.
Here?
Yes, sir.
In here?
Yes, sir.
This asterisk, and it says hoodie, and then this asterisk, it says coat with a question mark.
Okay. Now, below, in section number 2, or the middle section, I'll call it, that contains what type of information?
They're items. Would you like me to read the sections?
Please.
Starting at the top left. And again, these are all identified with an asterisk. Small camera, big camera, small tripod with a question mark at the end, big tripod with a question mark, gas can, matches, lube, video from house, if any, crowbar.
Okay. And then I guess separated in the third section, labeled kit. Would you mind going through that list, please?
The section at the bottom identified with the square surrounding kit. Again, these are all identified with asterisks up until this vibrator bag, which has hash points after those. Presumably the items that are in that bag. But it's the first item is identified with the number 2 in parentheses, 2 handcuffs and keys, restraint bar, hood, another 2 in parentheses, ball gags, restraint board with a question mark, toolbox, locks and keys, gloves, tape and washcloth, vibrator bullet, neck restraint, bag of rubber gloves, vibrator bag, and then this is the section where there's 4 items with hash marks below it. Under vibrator bag is vibrator, batteries with 2 in parentheses, condom, French tickler, and then this next item is a separate asterisk, zip ties, And then after zip ties in parentheses, it says 19 small. The next item is needles. And after that, in parentheses, is the number 4. And then after that, in parentheses, is the number 7, big. Which actually, I believe the zip ties, 19 small, 7 big, is where that is supposed to be in conjunction. The needles with 4, I think, is a separate item. But they do kind of interlace on those lines. And then the last item, this is the only part of this entire list that's in pencil, hook and rope.
Now, as part of your investigation, Detective Sparks, did you inquire into the question documents unit of the state police for some assistance?
Yes, I did.
And as part of that process, what is required, and I guess what is required of that unit in order for them to do their job, and then what did you do?
Well, the purpose of getting with the question documents unit was to take this list and gather handwriting samples of Jeffrey Willis to compare to this list to determine if it was his handwriting.
Now, we've had some testimony from his ex-wife that she provided some known writing samples of the defendant.
She did.
You recall obtaining those?
Yes.
Now, the unit also requires, I guess, some test samples, if you will, from the defendant. Is that right?
Yes.
And did you obtain those?
Yes, I did.
How did you obtain those?
A search warrant was drafted through the Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office and the court. That search warrant was drafted with a list of each of these individual phrases, not in the same construction as this list. This list was never presented to Mr. Willis during the execution of the search warrant. But the search warrant was drafted with each one of these items on that list and instructions on the list for him to recreate these specific phrases on a document. Now the document that was provided, I was able to find a notepad that I believe was nearly identical to this, and that was one of the things question documents wants, is for it to be written on a similar paper, size and shape. So I provided him a notepad, or I provided a brand new notepad that had never been used or written on. I provided him individual sheets where he wrote from the search warrant list each of these items, and he did that 30 different times.
Okay, that was kind of my next question. That they require more than just one sample, is that correct?
Yes.
30 different samples, or writing that particular list 30 different times?
Yes.
Okay. And you collected all that and provided that to the question documents unit, is that correct?
Yes, I did. It was submitted through Grand Rapids Crime Lab and then forwarded to the Lansing question documents unit.
Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the other observations that you made at this residence. In particular, People's Exhibit 107. What are we looking at here?
This is a photograph of, it's Captain Christensen's hands turning a key that's in a lock that was located on, I believe this was the rear door of 3038 Bailey. I would have taken this picture. These were all pictures that I had taken.
Okay. So this was a lock, a padlock, if you will, to one of the entry points of 3038 Bailey?
Yes.
All right. People's Exhibit 108. What are we looking at here, sir?
This is going to be the door that is on the east side of the residence. 3038 Bailey is on a north and south direction road. It's on the east side of that road. This would be the doorway, the rear doorway that's on the side of the house that's opposite of the roadway. Would be the east side of the house.
Okay. People's Exhibit 109. What are we looking at here?
This is going to be the south access door to the detached garage.
Okay, so this is part of the garage. And again, I know we don't have a picture of it, but the keys open up that lock as well.
Yes.
Exhibit 110. What is this?
I'd have to see the next picture, but I believe this is the front door of the residence,
Okay.
the west side of the house.
Exhibit 111, more of a close-up, I guess.
It's going to be, it's a continuation. It would be the next picture that I would have taken. It would be that same lock, and it would be that lock being opened with that key.
All right. And these are all different padlocks, again, on the entry points, if you will, of the house on Bailey. Is that correct?
Yes, there were 3 padlocks. They all looked the same, and they were all opened by a single key that was on a keychain
Okay.
we located.
Now, ultimately, did you get an opportunity to, I guess, take a look around on the inside of the Bailey Street address?
Yes.
All right, let's talk about that for a second. People's Exhibit 112, what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is going to be a photograph that I would have taken of the basement to 3038 Bailey.
Okay. People's Exhibit 113, this photograph?
Again, this would be a photograph of the basement at 3038 Bailey. Those last 2 pictures would have been taken in a kind of a panning, where I took the first one and then I would have then taken that next one, overlapping the first one right next to each other. So the prior picture would have been to the right-hand side of that picture.
Okay. Exhibit 114?
Same basement location, and it would also be, again, another step to the left. The stairway from the basement, I'm standing on the landing just after walking down the steps into the basement area. The stairs would have gone up on this wall that is to my back, or that's behind where the photograph is being taken.
All right. 115?
This is a room, the stairway would come down right over top on the same wall. This is a room that's around the corner of the landing, which is over here. So the first picture I would have taken would have been looking right past this room, the first picture that was shown, and then looking across the basement in this fashion. And then this would be me stepping into the room and then turning to the right. It was a room that was off from the basement. That faces to the west.
Okay. 116? People's 116?
This is a picture of me looking back towards the north, and the landing where all the previous pictures were taken is right here where the steps are. The prior picture of that entryway, that's right here. And then this is where the water heater and the pictures across the basement were taken. This is the basement of 3038 Bailey.
117?
This would be from standing in the same position of the prior picture. This would be me turning 90 degrees to the right and facing east. The landing of the stairs would be back over here to the left of that picture.
And finally, 118. What are we looking at here?
This is a picture of cleaning materials that were gathered by investigators and set in that area of the room prior to me taking the picture.
What was the significance of collecting all that?
It seemed unusual that there was so many cleaning materials gathered in one corner of the room.
So if I understand it correctly, the white bottles are what?
Clorox bleach.
And then the Tide and the other boxes are what?
The bottle is a Tide laundry detergent with bleach, and then there's 6 additional boxes of Tide with bleach powder.
Okay. So all those containers contain bleach, essentially.
At some point, they were all empty.
It's a good answer to a bad question. Prior to them being empty, those containers had the component of bleach in them. in some fashion, whether it be Clorox bleach, or Tide with bleach.
Yes, they were all identified as a product that included bleach.
Okay, and you kind of answered, but did any of those containers either contain liquid or powder?
The four, well, they were empty at the time that we were observing them.
And that's kind of the question I'm looking for. When you collected them, did any one of those Clorox bleach bottles, for example, have any more bleach in it?
No, they were empty.
The Tide liquid detergent, did that have any detergent with bleach left in it?
No.
And I think it's 4 or 5 boxes of Tide powder, did any of those have any of the powder left over?
No.
They were all empty?
Yes.
In your observations, Detective, in the basement in particular, did you make any observations as to any unusual conditions or anything that would suggest, for example, water damage or anything of that nature?
No.
Can you explain your answer?
We had gotten information that there was a point where Mr. Willis had been tending to the basement from water damage, and we were in the house at least on 3 different occasions for 3 separate search warrants, and to me the basement did not look like it had acquired water damage. Again, I had not been there previously, but there were cardboard boxes on the ground that had not been deteriorated like I would think if there was water damage, and there were not other indicators that I believe would have showed water damage.
Also, in your search of the residence, did you find any airsoft gun or fake or toy guns at all?
No.
Your Honor, first and foremost, I would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1, which is the photograph of the van.
No objection.
That's
Number what?
1.
1?
Number 1.
Okay.
And then exhibits 104 to 118, which are the photographs that Detective Sparks.
104 to 118?
Correct.
You're on 118, Your Honor.
Okay.
James Sparks, I think you said it, but that's 118 on your monitor right now?
Yes.
That shows a bunch of cleaning materials all gathered in one spot. Is that how they were found?
No.
Okay, and do you know from whence they came, from where they were gathered?
I don't. There were a dozen investigators assisting with the search. I was told that they were all located within that corner, but in the specific spaces, I don't know the answer.
But you didn't personally see where they were located?
No.
You were simply told by others where they found them?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions, and I have no objections to those exhibits.
Okay, they'll be received.
I have no further questions of Detective Sparks.
Okay. May I?
You may.
Okay. Since you've got the gloves on, let's start with that letter, then you can take the gloves off. The note that you found with the list. Do you recall what I'm speaking of?
Yes.
Can you pull that up? I think it's in that envelope in front of you. What is that? That exhibit. I think it's 106. 106 or 107, somewhere around there.
It's 190.
190. I was way off.
Right? It's 196.
I think that's the exhibit number with the photograph, though.
194H,
I think
194. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
item number 96.
there. Well, that's the one. Okay, I'm looking at the document now. Is that you have it on the monitor in front of you there?
Yes.
And it looks, is that the document that's in 196 that's in that little envelope?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as I look at that, there are 2 horizontal lines drawn across that document. Is that as you recall?
Yes.
Okay. And did you put those marks on there?
No.
In fact, you didn't put any marks on there, did you?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So you have, when you saw those
and in fact you read them differently. Did you get the impression those were dividing lines between the lists?
Yes, I believe they were.
Okay. The other thing, I noted that there's blue ink, red ink, and pencil on that document. Do you recall?
Yes.
And if you don't, you pull it out there and take a look. Okay, so did you, in looking at the document and in your experience, was there any, could you discern any particular reason why different inks or pen and pencil were used to create that document?
No, I couldn't say one way or another.
You've made lists in your life yourself, correct?
Yes.
And on occasion, you'll write a list and you come back and might sometimes you use a different writing implement to continue a list or to add to a list or detract from a list, may strike something out with a different object than what you started with. In other words, you might start with a blue pen and then you might have found a red pen and then you might have found a green pen and just keep making the list. Ever have that experience?
Yes.
Okay. So given what we have a list divided apparently into 3 parts. We have multiple implements used to make the list. Does that give you the impression the list was made at different times over time?
It could have been. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That list was found in that trash bin,
Yes.
along with that green wrapper, correct?
Yes.
And as I look at it, it looks like the bottom of that trash bin is dry, dirty but dry.
Yes.
Is that what you recall as well?
Yes.
Okay. Where was that trash bin when you located it? Or when it was located? I don't know if you located it or not.
The one-stall garage, looking at the residence from the roadway, the one-stall garage is to the north or the left-hand side of the house, and it's set to the back, towards where the back door is, kind of even with the back side of the residence. When that garage door is open and it opened upward, the trash can was in and to the right near where the back garage door that was, the door was shown with the lock in a prior picture. It was near that door.
Okay. And I asked all of that to get to this. It seems to me that trash can and whatever's inside it would have been protected from the elements so long it was in that garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't know how long that trash can was in that garage, do you?
No.
And as far as you know, did anyone able to date how long that list and how long that wrapper was actually in that trash bin before it was discovered?
No.
Okay. You mentioned that my client, and it's going to sound like a silly question, my client has lost weight, correct?
Yes.
He hasn't gotten any taller, though, has he, as far as you can tell?
I don't believe so.
Okay. You mentioned that there was a search warrant, and that's why law enforcement was going through the home.
Yes.
3 search warrants, in fact, I think you said.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And you also mentioned that you received information that at least at some point my client was claiming there was water damage in the basement, correct?
Yes.
How long before the search warrant did he claim the water damage occurred?
I don't remember for sure. I believe it was back in that 13-14 time frame, but okay. I'm going from some memory of conversations with investigators back in the day. That was nothing I was directly involved in. 13-14
time frame, and the first search warrant took place when?
May 17th of 2016.
Okay. So 13, 14, 2 or 3 years difference?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could we go back to exhibit, what was it, 115, please? Okay. There's some writing on the wall, some written writing on the wall. You see that back room there?
Yes, I do.
Did you ever get an explanation for what that was supposed to be?
I have no idea what that is.
You're a police officer of how many years?
22.
That looked like graffiti of some sort? Maybe gang graffiti of some sort?
Could be.
All right. Did you ever hear of the place being broken into?
No, I did not hear that.
Okay. But you found several padlocks on the door, correct?
Yes.
and that graffiti on the wall, correct?
Yes.
Okay. One moment, please. During the, now, I assume that if you're working on this task, this particular task force, and you were, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There were briefings on occasions where you guys matched what you found and tried to figure this puzzle out, correct?
Yes.
Okay. During the course of those briefings, do you ever recall hearing about my client going up north for snowmobile trips?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything, and that first, and you have the list in front of you, the first third of the list, is there anything incongruent, anything disparate from what's on that list and somebody planning for a snowmobile trip up north? Is there anything that says, hey, this shouldn't be on that list for that?
Under the clothes section?
Yes, sir. What clothes says it?
Panties, maybe? Her panties?
Okay. Do you know if my client was married?
Yes, he was.
Do you know if she went on the trips with him?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe so? Do you know?
I don't know that
Okay.
answer. I don't believe she did, though.
But you don't know?
Right.
Did you ever ask her that question? Did you go on snowmobile trips with your husband?
Say that again?
Did you ever ask her that question? Did you go on snowmobile trips with your ex-husband, Miss Bishop? Did you ever ask her?
I don't remember talking to Miss Bishop about that.
Okay. Have you ever heard of Yamalube?
Yes, I have.
What is if you know, what is Yamalube?
It is a, Yamaha sells different kinds of oils, lubrications for their snowmobile or off-road vehicles.
Okay. And lube and gasoline are both on that top third of that list, are they not?
Yes.
You need gasoline for a snowmobile trip, wouldn't you? As far as you know? Do you have electric snowmobiles?
I'm a snowmobiler, and I don't take gasoline on snowmobile trips. They take way too much gas for hauling gas of your own.
Do you, when you get where you're going on your snowmobile trips, how do you fuel your vehicle to keep it going?
Gasoline.
So if you're going to a remote area where there are no gas stations and you want to go on a snowmobile trip, how would you keep your vehicle going?
How would I?
Yes, sir.
I would pull over and get gas before I got to where I was going.
No gas stations up there. You're going someplace so remote, no gas stations.
Are you asking if he would take a gas can with him?
No, I'm asking, you're saying that you don't take gas cans, and I was wondering, how will you keep your vehicle going if you're going someplace where there's no gas stations and it's remote? How do you keep your vehicle going with no gas?
I would plan on having fuel.
Thank you. One moment, please. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything?
I don't have anything to say.
We'll stand down, thank you. Probably a good time to take our morning.
Judge, can we back up?
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break.
be seated.
Thank you, Judge. The people of the state of Michigan call Lieutenant Mark Goff to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please have a seat, state and spell your name.
My name is Detective Lieutenant Mark Goff, G-O-F-F as in Frank.
Good morning, Lieutenant Goff.
Good morning.
Who do you work for, sir?
The Michigan Department of State Police at the Lansing Forensic Laboratory.
And how long have you been so employed with the state police?
About 18 years now, with about 9 years in the forensic lab.
And are you assigned to a particular unit in the forensic lab?
Yes, I am. I work at the question document unit.
And just in general, sir, could you describe for the jury what the question document is and does?
Okay. So I receive and examine cases involving documentary evidence, and sometimes I come to court to testify on those things. We do comparative examinations of handwriting and hand printing, printers, copiers, inks, paper. We do restorations of charred documents, water-soaked documents, obliterations, and we work on identifying counterfeits, forgeries, alterations.
Now, as part of that, I'm assuming you go through some either education and or training to get that qualification. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. So we actually have a 2-year training program under the direct supervision of qualified document examiners. It's akin to an apprenticeship. In addition to that, I've also taken numerous outside courses to include the FBI's Fundamental Handwriting Examination course.
Now, is there a certification that comes along with all this?
There actually is a certification. I'm currently working on it.
Gotcha. And have you testified as an expert before here in the state of Michigan?
Yes, I have. Numerous times, and actually right in this courtroom before.
I was going to say, not too long ago, you were qualified as an expert in this particular courtroom. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
An expert in the area of handwriting identification and whatnot.
Yes, sir.
All right. Your Honor, I move to qualify Lieutenant Goff as such.
No objection. He will be qualified in that field.
Lieutenant, in a sense, could you describe for the jury, I guess, the uniqueness of handwriting, why the question document unit actually can exist? Does that question make sense?
Yeah. So it starts with the understanding that no two people write alike, and that people are individuals, and that under normal circumstances, that individuality is going to be reflected in their handwriting. So there's a number of factors that are involved in determining some of this individuality, and some of those can be physical factors to include a person's fingers, the size of their hands, their arms, their muscular makeup or coordination. Some of it can be schooling, as how they learn to write or how they picture their own writing should look. And then some of these characteristics, some of these factors combine to influence a person's writing habit or their characteristics. So some of these characteristics that we look for in a person's writing are first the gross overall appearance. Does it look alike? Okay. And then there's the letter forms. Do the letters look similar? Are they formed similar? Just as an example, would a number 4 be made with a peak or open like a football goalpost? Those are just some character forms that we look at. Then getting more in depth, there's line quality. Is it smooth or wavy? There's pen pressure variation. Is the pen writing hard? Is it light writing? Does it vary in the pressure? Are there tapered beginning and ending strokes? We look at the spacing between letters, the relation to the baseline. Are the letters off the line? Are they below the line? Height relations, how tall are certain letters in relation to each other? Proportions, how big are certain letters in relation to each other? And then all of these characteristics, some of them have more individuality, more uniqueness. Some people make characters a little differently than others, and those are some of the things that we really key on when we're doing an examination, in addition to all of the other characteristics that we look at. Now, when doing an examination, we can make a determination that common authorship exists when these combination of characteristics exist in both the question writing and the known writing, to the extent that it would be beyond reason to believe that this combination of characteristics would appear in both, in the handwriting of like two separate people by mere chance or coincidence.
And that kind of leads to my next line of questioning. So in order for you to properly analyze a question document, first you have to have a question document, I would imagine.
Yes, sir.
And then you require of law enforcement to do what, as far as the materials you need in order to make an analysis?
So we request known writing, and this known writing is, our typical request will consist of a request sample, and what that does is that gives us the same words, letters, letter combinations that that we need to examine some of those characteristics, and then we'll also request some collected writing. And this collected writing is writing that was written outside the course of the investigation, and so that gives us an idea of whether or not the request writing samples are truly an example of their natural handwriting.
You're welcome.
Lieutenant, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 195. Can you describe for the jury what that is, please?
Yes, sir. This is a copy of my lab report, and it bears my signature.
Okay. Now, for this particular opinion and report, did you have a question document?
Yes, sir.
To review. All right. I'm going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibit 194. Does that appear to be the question document that you are asked to examine?
Yes, sir. It bears my designator of Q2 and lab number of GR16-2492 and my initials.
All right. And were you also provided the other two items, some known samples outside of some known writing samples of the defendant, Jeffrey Willis?
Yes, I was.
And we just had some testimony prior to you, but were you also given some requested samples?
Yes, I was.
And did they meet the parameters that you are required to have in order to make an analysis?
Yes, they do.
Now, based on your looking at the question document, the requested samples, and the known samples, were you able to come up with an opinion in this particular case?
Yes, sir.
What was that, sir?
It is my opinion that Jeffrey Willis wrote the question writing on the Q2 document.
Okay. And just so that we're clear on that, that's the small document that's contained in People's Exhibit 194.
That's correct.
Okay. That report, sir, that I offered to you, that's 195, is there anything different about that report than the original that you submitted to the agency?
No, sir.
It bears your signature?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I move for the omission of 195, as well as 194.
On here, Your Honor.
Okay.
As to 194. Good morning, Lieutenant Goff.
Good morning.
A couple questions. In terms of your discipline here in handwriting analysis, are you aware of, or do you know the impact that suggestion plays in terms of what people write down in terms of their exemplar? In other words, you have a sentence that says, I love dogs, and you have the person look at that and you have them write, I love dogs 30 times, correct? For example.
It seems like there's two questions there.
Okay, let's separate them. Let's separate them.
Okay.
I give you an example, and you want to check for my handwriting.
Okay.
And the line you want to check against is I love dogs.
Correct.
So you have me write out I love dogs 30 times, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The question is, what impact does the suggestion from the original have on my handwriting? In other words, I'm looking right at what you want me to write. Does that have any impact as to how I end up writing? That influences me at all? Do you know?
So are you saying if I guess my question is, what are you copying? Are you copying the question document that you are executing the known samples from?
Yes.
That could impact someone's handwriting, yes.
Okay, do you know if that was done in this case, or was it something typed out and then he was told to write it?
I do not know.
Okay. The second question I have is how do you compensate for a guy faking it? In other words, suppose the line you're asking me to write out is I have the marijuana in my pocket. Well, I don't want you to realize it was me. So how do you compensate if a guy tries to fake his handwriting, or either try to fake it so it's not identical, or try to fake it so that it is, so maybe it gets him out of trouble? How do you compensate for that?
Okay. And believe it or not, actually, people do that a lot. And that's actually why we request collected known samples. So part of my examination is I examine the request writing and I examine the collected writing for consistency. So do the same writing characteristics that exist in those request samples, do they exist in the known samples? And that shows a common authorship there. One of the reasons that we ask for multiple samples, and in this instance we had 30 request writing samples, it's twofold. First of all, when a person attempts to disguise their handwriting, they can have a difficulty maintaining that disguise. And what we look for when we do an examination to render an opinion of disguise is a person able to execute the writing consistently? So in disguise, the number one thing that people will do to attempt to disguise their handwriting is write with an opposite slant. So if they normally slant to the right, they'll slant to the left. They'll make grotesque characters. So specifically, usually the uppercase or first letters of a word, they'll make it ornate or illegible. Scrawling is another method. And if you remember when we talked about it before and I explained, I examined the document for naturalness of writing. And so when you write a smooth line, that is an indication of natural writing. If you're attempting to write in a disguised manner, the writing is going to be slower because you have to think of each movement that you're going to make, and that is inherently slower than executing your natural writing style. And so this slow writing shows up with tremor in the line, heaviness of pen pressure, and blunt beginning and ending strokes because the pen starts, moves slowly throughout the line, and then stops. And it's not a smooth flying finish. So that is something we do check to ensure that the writing that we get is a natural sample.
All right. Thank you. And earlier in the trial, we had some folks in there talk about DNA, that sort of thing. And I got the impression that most of the work on DNA is done with computers and microscopes and very precise instruments that help people measure and weigh one against the other. This is a different type of discipline, is it not? In other words, this is a human being, eyes and training, looking at documents and attempting to discern is the handwriting different or is it not?
That's correct.
Okay. And is that why it's called an opinion? You said it's my opinion.
That is correct.
Okay. Do you know whether or not the samples that you use in the information that you came, especially 194, 95, I forget which, it doesn't matter. Is there a check and balance with that? In other words, when you come to a conclusion, is there a second handwriting expert or a third handwriting expert who also reviews your results and either agrees with you or disagrees with your conclusion, or is a solo kind of one-man operation here?
No, sir. All of our opinions and our laboratory reports are independently reviewed by a qualified examiner in that same discipline.
The reports are. How about the
the conclusion, the information that led to the conclusions of the report. In other words, did three guys look at my client's handwriting and all three say, hey, this is the same guy? Or was it the report itself, the conclusionary report that was reviewed?
No, sir. The review encompasses all aspects of the case, and that would be any notes, any images, and the report, including the opinion statement.
Okay, I'm a little slow here, so I'll ask. Did multiple people look at these examples and come to the same conclusions you did?
Mine was, in the question document unit, there were only 3 of us at the time, so it was reviewed by one of the other 2 people.
Okay. And is that person's name listed on your report or no?
No, it's not.
Do you know who that person was?
I do not know who reviewed it. It was one of 2 people.
How do you know it was reviewed? Is that just standard procedure, or is there some demarcation?
It has to be, in our laboratory system, in order for a case to be marked complete, we take our notes in a computer system, we write our reports in the computer system, we load all of our images and all the rest of our handwritten notes into the system, and then we have to request a review. The report cannot be released without my signature until a reviewer has checked off to say that they've reviewed it.
You didn't check the fingerprints or DNA, that's not your role.
That's not my area.
As for the admission of the document, I have no objection. Documents, 94, 194,
194, 195.
194 and 5 are received.
I don't know if that was what dear.
It was.
Okay, I just want to make sure. That being the case, the only thing that I would ask Lieutenant, I mean, I've obviously been doing this for 9 years. You've been qualified as an expert. Is there any question in your mind about your opinion in this case that Jeff Willis wrote that note?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. I have nothing else on this witness, Judge.
I have no questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. You may stand down.
That's all I have for the morning, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, we will can we start early this afternoon? Do you have your witnesses scheduled to come in? Like, could we start then at 1?
I can probably arrange that, Judge.
Okay.
Can we start at 1:15? You mind?
Yeah.
Well, listen, we could start at 1. That's fine.
All right.
They'll be ready to go.
Yeah, because I have sentences at 1:30.
Oh, okay.
So then we could get a witness in, get a break, and get a sentence.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. So you heard our discussion here. We're gonna ramp up again here at 1 o'clock. Please don't discuss the case with anyone or among yourselves or do any media accounts of this, and we'll see you back here at 1 p.m. And then we'll be done this afternoon with
Yes,
the
sir.
witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so you're playing.
I am.